what we're doing today is trying to find out what issues are most important to people. So, and whether or not you would be interested in coming to a town hall or a meeting about that issue. So, but if you don't want to come to a town hall or meeting, we'd still like to hear what your issue is.
So y'all making people easy for the people to basically congregate and become the village with you.
Exactly. You got it, girl.
And then build some power by getting the community active.
Exactly.
It
So can
does.
you fill that out for us?
And then you're able to fill these out.
So I'm Kelly from the health department, community health worker, and I'm part of a team called Healthy Neighborhoods. And what our role is to help our families in the community with resources like DHHS or Social Security or just about anything you can possibly think of. So if you ever need any services, please take one of our brochures and make sure our baby is up to date with her immunizations. I know the shots aren't fun, but they keep us safe and healthy. Okay.
Oh, you saw that facial expression?
Program, which is a cash prescription program for new and expecting mothers. So the first prescription is $1,500 when you sign up, and then subsequently you get $500 a month for 6 to 12 months after your baby is born. And those funds can be used for anything you need them for. It's a cash prescription. They don't tell you what you have to use it for, like other programs have done in the past. And it's really easy to sign up. So if you go to the website on this sheet right here, you literally put the information in, and they get back with you so quickly. It's super easy. There's not all this red tape you have to go through to get into the program. And then, yeah, I'm the mayor, so any questions folks have about the city, what we're doing, we're about to start budget season in April and May to try to have a balanced budget by July 1st to make sure that we can meet the needs of the community and the citizens. All right, thank you. No problem.
So, I'm just going to shout out my name. It's Rita. My name is on the front of the, and this is.
Hi, I'm Reverend Jeff Harrell. I have a couple of hats here. I pastor New Beginnings Community Church in Washington County. I work with the Washington Regional Organizing Coalition, and I'm chair of the Voter Registration, Education, and Mobilization. Long name, we just call it BRIM, Committee of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated Signal Road Chapter. So we're here to collaboratively, or to do this presentation on civic engagement.
Should we close the door?
Yes, we will.
Or just kind of close it. Can you hear us back there? Sure. Okay, thanks. So I wear many hats as well. I've been volunteering with Voters Not Politicians. I volunteered with WeRock, and currently part of a coalition. And we have petitions back there to see if we could pass a law. We want to pass a law in Michigan to say that the regulated utilities, like your DTE, consumers, should not be giving to the candidates who run for office in Michigan. Can you imagine why we would want a law like that?
Yes, I can.
You want to shout it out?
It's better for the people who need it than the people who are just given because of a title.
Right, yeah. So thanks for that. So, did she say we have a half hour?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
15.
We're gonna fly through this. So we've already talked about, Voters Not Politicians is the group. We just came out of nowhere, a bunch of citizens, people like you, who said, we should stop having politicians draw the district lines every 10 years because we don't get well represented when they decide who's in what district, and then it diminishes our vote collectively. So we started in 2018. WeRock is a local group. We work on hyper-local things, neighborhoods, where someone has decided that something needs to change. Okay? Go ahead. Okay, so I'm just gonna, so I've already told you what Voters Not Politicians has done. We worked also to expand voter rights. How many people realize that we can vote 9 days early in most of our statewide and federal elections? You do, okay? We didn't get that just because somebody decided to give it to us. We fought for it as citizens, okay? So that's what we talk about when we talk about citizen engagement. But it could be as small as getting city council to fix something on the road near you, or to control traffic coming through this, basically a driveway. And they're shunting traffic through your driveway. And is that safe? Are people being respectful of your space if you live over there? So currently, WeRock is working on some, what do we call it, criminal justice reform. It says that young people accused of minor misdemeanors should, we want to avoid them from getting deeper into the juvenile justice system, but also making sure that they get services so that they do not continue to do the behaviors that brought the attention of the community, okay? This is about civic engagement, it's about voting, but before we even talk about voting, we need to talk about who we are in our space. So Jeff is
So, well, I guess they always say, don't say, can you hear? But you can hear better now, right? Okay. So one reason we're doing this is because we really want people in our community to realize what it means to be a citizen, what it means to be a voter, what it means to participate, and why bother to do it, okay? Because everything that comes into democracy comes through the vote. It may seem like it doesn't, but it does. Whether your garbage gets picked up is a function of the politicians that make sure it happens. Whether or not you, what happens with judges when you go to court? We elect those people whether they are fair or not. What happens with police? We elect the people that hire the police officers. What happens on our streets and blocks, whether our streets get fixed, and whether or not we have clean water, all that happens through our vote. And so one thing we're looking at is I'm trying to encourage people to really be engaged citizens, because often we vote and that's it, but we don't follow up with those that we've elected to make sure they're doing the things that we want them to do. And so a lot is possible when we get engaged. So this is not just about the voting piece, this is about what happens afterwards. How we engage with those folks that we elected to make sure that they are doing the things that they promised to do. You ever heard a politician promise you something while they're running, but you don't get it? That's because we don't hold them accountable to give it to us. All right, so why don't you go to the next slide, please.
Okay, so remember, I'm part of Voters Not Politicians, and we've been working on a program called My City Votes. So around the state, it's like working with communities because there may be low turnout. And so I asked our statewide group, and we're mostly volunteers, to focus on Ypsilanti because there is a perception and possibly a bit of a reality that there's low voter turnout in this part of the county. So what do you do about that? Well, part of it is coming here. Why bother voting and all of that? So we wanted to focus on Ypsilanti, and so this is part of the launch. Certainly the work that Survivors Speak and Trishea Duckworth does, it's been about civic engagement for several years, if you've been coming to these events. So we wanted to do that, and part of doing that is talking to people who live in this area, because I can't assume anything about what may be important or not. So I wanted to show you, you have 3 wards in Ypsilanti, and you have 1 mayor, six council, and then you also vote for, school board members in this area, 6, 7 of them, and library members that decide how your libraries will run. If you followed the news about 5 years ago, they were shutting down libraries about books, whether their books should be there or not there. So those are people's choices. This is your mayor, and I looked up that her term ends this year, so she will likely run for another 4 years, and likely you're going to see her coming into the community. I think she's already present in the community, but now she needs to talk to voters in terms of earning your vote. She needs to talk to citizens, whether you vote for her or not. You're a citizen, right? You don't get to vote yet, but you have a voice. Yep. And then, again, this is a little, we scanned it down. Now, I don't know how far people live from this building. Are you close? Are you from another county, another township?
Everybody live in Ipsy City?
Yep. Okay. So the number 1 there on the screen, that is where we are right now. And it's a voting center, okay? That means all of the people around this area that's in that lower blue corner right now are assigned to come here. As we get closer to the elections, you wanna make sure that that's still the case. And that's part of My City Votes project, because we learned 4 years ago that people didn't know, it was 2 years ago, they didn't know where to go because we had changed a lot of laws. And so that's when I said, oh, we have to go knock on doors because people don't know where it is. Again, here's your city council people, and the top 2 there, Michelle King and Roland Tucson, I believe, cover all of Ward 1, okay? So you have 2. So Jeff's gonna talk about, okay, so what roles do local government play? Did anybody just do a shout out? What does your government do for you? Do for your family, do for your community, do for your city?
Roads. Go ahead, man.
Roads?
Okay.
Library?
Neighborhood, you say trash?
Trash?
Yep.
Stores?
Say stores?
Stores?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
what
can.
stores can be here or not?
Yep.
And what do they need to do to behave like good citizens?
Yep.
Good community members?
Okay.
Okay, Jeff?
So, this is actually showing you basically the things that you've said. When the young lady said stores, right? Stores is a function of zoning, right? What gets to be built and what happens. Where folks can live and what buildings come up is a function of government, of planning commissions. That's a part of government, zoning commissions. In terms of how often the garbage gets picked up and whether or not you have recycling or whether or not you have composting. Economic development, whether or not there is money spent in your community to help it thrive. Okay, so you can pay your taxes, right, and all your money goes to other places, not necessarily in your own neighborhood. And how we hold governments accountable also is an issue of how our dollars come back to us. Hiring people and making sure we've got those folks that do our services for us. Those are all a function of government. And I want to look at that public safety one there. It is not just policing, it's safety. How do we keep our neighborhoods safe? How do police respond to us? And how do we hold those who elect police chiefs, who hire commanders and captains, who hire officers, to make sure that we want to call the police when something happens? And that's a big issue in a lot of communities, a big issue in communities of color. Sometimes don't want the police to show up, but we do want them to provide public safety. We do want to make sure that we've got adequate hydrants. Doesn't matter if the hydrant is 2 blocks away if my house catches fire, right? So whether or not we have hydrants near our houses, those type of things, and how quick the ambulance gets to us. How quick? Whether it's 15 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes, that's all a function of our government and what we hold them accountable to do for us. Okay. Whether or not you can keep your dog, or whether or not your neighbor can let their dog out and roam the streets. I grew up in Detroit. When I was growing up, at night, you better run the house quick because people just let their dogs out. And it would just be, so whether or not you have to have your dog on a leash, whether or not you have to provide for your animal, whether or not you can keep chickens in your backyard. Anybody have chickens? Okay, there you go. Where I live, folks have chickens, but you have to, the government decides whether or not they can be so close to you and so forth. How you figure those things out. Property values and taxing. People can lose their houses because they don't pay taxes. Okay, and so how we deal with whether or not we get tax breaks, whether or not we get tax forgiveness, how we deal with delinquencies. You can, the government can have it so that you can be one payment away from paying off your house, but you're behind in your taxes and you lose your house. And that's the issue of how our county treasurer collects taxes. Whether or not you get your business licensed, okay? Whether or not you can, you need a license to do hair. You need a license to cut hair. You need a license to cook food, right? And so whether or not you get that license so you can thrive. When I grew up in Detroit, ladies had hair salons in their basement, okay? So you go to somebody's house and get your hair done, but whether or not that's legal is a function of whether the government will let you do that. And depending on how your culture goes, that may be a perfectly fine thing to do, right? And how our elections are run. Whether or not we have drop boxes, whether or not we're notified, all that's a function of how government plays out in our life. Okay. These are some issues that shape Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, West Willow, the state. School quality. Okay, how good are our schools, right? Mental health and addiction services. That goes back to the policing issue, right? If I call you because, let's say, a family member is having a mental health crisis, are you trained to deal with them without arresting them, throwing them in jail? That's how our tax dollars go. Whether or not we have clean water, and whether or not people can pollute our water, whether or not we have a bus that runs by our house on a regular basis at a decent time. If I have to be at work at 6:30 in the morning, a bus that starts running at 8 doesn't do me any good. If I get off work at 10 o'clock at night, a bus that stops running at 9:30 doesn't do me any good. But if we're communicating what the needs of our community are, we may have a bus that starts at 6, ends at 11.
So, I just wanted to throw this up here. It's nationally, we all vote more in presidential elections, presidential years, than anything local. And so you can see, and also in primaries, we don't vote, and so as much. So you can see in August of 2020, August of 2022, August of 2024, that's pretty low. Now, the challenge in Washtenaw County is we tend to run Democratic across the board. And so if you're not voting in the primary, you're not having a say who's ending up in the race in November. So that's something to consider when somebody says, it's just the primary, whatever. What you end up doing is giving that vote, that power of that choice to others that are very engaged in it, and you may not agree with that.
And something else about low voter turnout. Low voter turnout does not mean that people aren't engaged. It doesn't mean that people don't know what's going on. It may mean they figure it does not matter whether I go and vote or not. And that becomes an issue of how we see our own civic engagement and our own power to shape what happens after the election. That's where the engagement piece comes in. After election, because the politician wants to get reelected, right? They want to get reelected. And what gets them reelected? Votes. That's how it votes, right? Okay? And so if our communities, our neighborhoods turn out to vote in mass, if they want to get reelected, they got to come talk to us, address our needs. But if we just leave that on the table, then we wonder what's happening and nothing's happening. Whether it's the county, whether it's the state, whether it's our local politicians, is whether or not they address our needs and whether or not we make those needs known. So low voter turnout does not mean that people aren't engaged. They may very well be engaged. They may say, "Quite frankly, I just don't think it makes a difference. You didn't do nothing last time, you ain't gonna do nothing this time." But that's not why people get in office. They get off to do something. At least they should.
So I think we've made our points. We are hoping that you would consider sitting down with us or with some others that would like to just understand what might need to be done locally, so that you can have a voice in what goes on around you. Does that mean that everything you want, you get? No, but at least you get to the table and you get to influence some of the things that happen. I brought up when we started about you've got a road closure here, and all of a sudden I realized that the detour comes through right there. I live in Ann Arbor, off of a street that goes to the hospital. And every time they take that street down, they want to go through my street. The problem with, not because I don't want people going through my street, we don't have any sidewalks. And we've got a lot of little kids and 3 blind curves. So what happens with little kids on wheels? Yeah, and old people, like, get them. So it's like, so we just said, when they were making decisions, we showed up at the community meeting and said, you cannot divert people through this neighborhood. It would be dangerous because people are frustrated that they have to take a detour. Have anybody seen that behavior through your street over there? If you live over there, yeah, they're frustrated. No, and so they know when they see us coming, they're not gonna put that detour down our little 3 blind curve street.